I'm remembering the days before I went away, way back in the hills of old Vermont. And the orchard on the hill, I think I see it still, way back in the hills of old Vermont. For tonight I long to be where the catamount run free and the rattlesnake can lie out in the sun, near the voices of the loons when the apple blossoms bloom, way back in the hills of old Vermont. Now there used to be a barn near the old fishing pond, way back in the hills of old Vermont. So many fields of hay now gone with yesterday, way back in the hills of old Vermont. Oh, tonight I long to be where the catamount run free and the rattlesnake can lie out in the sun, near the voices of the loons when the apple blossoms bloom, way back in the hills of old Vermont. Well, everything has changed, nothing stays the same, way back in the hills of old Vermont. Like that old brown panther's roar, you won't hear that no more, way back in the hills of old Vermont. For tonight I long to be where the catamount run free and the rattlesnake can lie out in the sun, near the voices of the loons when the apple blossoms bloom, way back in the hills of old Vermont. But when the rains came down and flooded many towns, way back in the hills of old Vermont, all the neighbors lent a hand for the loving of the land, way back in the hills of old Vermont. For tonight I long to be where the catamount run free and the rattlesnake can lie out in the sun, near the voices of the loons when the apple blossoms bloom, way back in the hills of old Vermont. Hi, this is Rik Palieri, and welcome to another episode here of these songs and stories for hard-hitting times. And I'm happy to be here today. As you can see, I got a little dressed up for you folks today because we have a special show. I'm always kind of doing these different types of shows, and I thought that it would be fun to do something totally different because I think that you have seen a lot of things that I've done, and I'm just going to check and make sure that you're actually hearing me. And Al Poindexter, good evening from Florida, and Baba Koo says squeak. And Jamie Johnson, good afternoon from Arizona. See, Jamie, I dressed up just for you out in the Arizona way here. And Rhonda Scott Merrick, all right, there, squeak. And I have no audio. Does everybody else have audio? I think everybody has audio. And I think, what do you think there? What's that? Can you hear me? Lost it? There's no audio. Where did it go?
It was okay for a minute, and Rhonda said she had no audio, and then I was writing her and said it was okay.
Test. It's here. Test. It's coming through over here.
Let me check. I didn't bring anything.
All right. So we're just checking out the audio, folks. But meanwhile, for all you pigs out there, I'm hearing that Truffles is here and says hello to Rhonda and to Al Poindexter, right? Oh, you miss all your pig buddies, don't you? You do, don't you? I know. I know. And you sitting down here in my studio all alone? Well, we're hoping that everybody's hearing me. Give me an idea if anybody's hearing me. I think that some folks are hearing. Sounds great to Al. So I think we're okay. All right, so we're off to an auspicious start. And like I said before, hear you in Arizona. All right. And Florida, we hear you in Florida. And Rhonda is silent. All right. And silently. I don't know. Because it's working in some places and not in others. It's kind of a strange phenomenon. One of those weird things. There is no audio, huh? What do you want me to do? Okay, Mariana's working on something. I think that I'm seeing audio here, and I'm going to just continue with this because right now, what else can I do? It's back. It's back. It's back. So we have audio. We don't have audio. I just don't know. What I do know. It's on your phone? Okay. It's on your phone? Okay. All right. Well, you know, we've been talking a lot about friends, dear friends who've been passing away lately. You know, older friends, some of them sick. And today I got news that another of the old hobo kings, Iron Horse Brad, he just passed away. He caught the westbound. You know, Iron Horse was a good guy. He was an artist too. He made beautiful walking canes. Mariana has one of Iron Horse Brad's walking canes, and I thought that I wanted to do this Utah Phillips song in honor of our friend Iron Horse Brad. So we're going to do that. I was there when we opened the boxcar. Found him stone dead on the floor. Though thumbing and bumming was all of our trade, I never had seen him before. He wore the face of a stranger, lost and unknown in a crowd, and his body looked so small as we carried him down, wrapped in a newspaper shroud. Oh, the winds blow cold in Wyoming. The stars shine clear and bright. If you don't wake up tomorrow at all, I guess it's old buddy good night. His hair was the color of winter, streaked with iron and cold, and all you could see in his soft prairie eyes was the rain, the wind, and the snow. The backs of his hands were like road maps. Lines on his face were the same, and on his left arm a faded tattoo bordered a rose and a name. Oh, the winds blow cold in Wyoming. The stars shine clear and bright. If you don't wake up tomorrow at all, I guess it's old buddy good night. Now I don't know where he came from. He rode on a UP freight. If there's someone waiting for him down the line, I guess he'll be a little bit late. So write a line in your papers, and here's what I want you to say. There's some things worse than dying alone. One of them's living this way. Oh, the winds blow cold in Wyoming. The stars shine clear and bright. If you don't wake up tomorrow at all, I guess it's old buddy good night. Oh, the winds blow cold in Wyoming. The stars shine clear and bright. If you don't wake up tomorrow at all, I guess it's old buddy good night. That's for old Iron Horse Brad, who just passed away recently. And I was thinking about him, and I wanted to honor him with a song. I'm going to play just a little bit of banjo here. It's another song that we like to play sitting around a campfire, you know. And a lot of people know this as the, you know, Charlie Poole did this song here. Don't let your deal go down. Don't let your deal go down. Don't let your deal go down till the last old dollar is gone. I've been all around this whole wide world, from New York to Tennessee, and any old place I hang my hat seems like dear home to me. Oh, don't let your deal go down. Don't let your deal go down. Don't let your deal go down till the last old dollar is gone. You do it now. Well, this banjo is all that I own. A dollar is all that I save. Ain't gonna take anything from this whole wicked world. Take nothing to my grave. Oh, don't let your deal go down. Don't let your deal go down. Don't let your deal go down till that last old dollar is gone. Well, who's gonna shoot your pretty little feet? Who's gonna love your hand? Who's gonna kiss your red ruby lips when I'm in a foreign land? Oh, don't let your deal go down. Don't let your deal go down. Don't let your deal go down till that last old dollar is gone. One more time. Don't let your deal go down. Don't let your deal go down. Don't let your deal go down till that last old dollar is gone. All right, don't let your deal go down. And I'm not sure if I'm still being silent over here because I can't tell. But Rhonda's having some problems over there. And the audio is on and silently and audio back. The audio is fine, don't know what happened. Well, here we are. And Al is here, and good evening from Florida. So we're just going to continue right on, folks, because I was thinking about something a little bit different this time. And I thought it would be interesting for you to understand a little bit about, you know, sometimes the crazy kind of clothes that I wear. But you see, it's part of who I am. It goes back a long, long way in my family. When I was a young kid, one of the few things that I used to do, I used to go down into the basement. You know, that's where all the, when you're a young kid, that's where all the cool stuff is hidden away in some dark corner in the basement. And there I would spend my time looking at this book. This book, you can't see it too well. I'm going to turn it around. I'll turn one of them around in a minute. This is my great-great-grandfather, Joseph or Giuseppe Palieri. And he was an embroidery designer. He was an artist. He would draw out designs, and he and his wife would make clothes. And they would make them, a lot of them, for entertainers. My father told me that when he was a young boy, that he would visit Grandpa, and that was his grandpa, and he would be able to go to shows because of all the clothes that Joseph would design for all the entertainers. So this idea of these kind of clothes are something that goes back a long way. Now I'm going to turn this around. Let's see, just so you get an idea. Okay, there. You can see all of these designs that embroidery designs that great grandpa would do, and I would spend a lot of time looking at them, and just looking at the lines, the fine lines that he would make. And there was one design that was very interesting, and I thought that somewhere in here, it's right here, and I have to do a little repair work on it because it's pretty old. Is this, whoop, this rose. You can see this beautiful detailed rose. And I'm going to show you this rose again a little bit later. But you know, so I was a young kid, and I was fascinated by Roy Rogers and you know, of course Zorro, all of the, you know, Gene Autry, all of the different cowboys, and you know, I would have, you know, some cowboy boots and cowboy shirts when I was a little kid. And later on, when I was a teenager and started playing music, my mom would buy some cowboy shirts for me when I would get up on stage. The first time I got up on stage, I had this cowboy shirt on. And so it's been a part of who I am for many, many years. But I didn't really think about clothes that much, you know. And that's until I went to Poland. I went to Poland, and I was studying to learn how to play the bagpipes. And I went there in 1980, and I went to a festival in Rzeszów, Poland, the World Festival. And everybody had these different, basically, folk clothing from different regions, because in Poland, there's all kinds of different types of folk clothing. And one of the reasons that I learned later on is because when Poland, you know, was taken over by so many different countries, the only thing that a lot of the people had left to have any kind of identity were some of those folk clothes. So they used to put them on for special occasions, and like weddings and birthdays and funerals and holidays. And so I went there, and they told me that I was going to have to wear one of these in order to play these bagpipes. I wasn't very keen on the idea, but I was a guest in the country, and so I went along with it. Now, in 1984, I got a fellowship to go study in Poland, and there I realized that it was a lot more about being part of the community. When you wore these clothes, you were actually part of the community. And they could tell, like, what kind of family that you were from, depending on, you know, how many buttons that you had, or different types of things that were on there. They could tell if you were a married man or you weren't a married man, or, you know, all of these different things. And so when I was there back in 1984, on Christmas morning, I was presented with my vest here. That I wear when I play Polish music. And this is part of the idea of being part of the community. And I'm going to try to bring this in close enough. I don't know if I can, but you can see these buttons go back before the Second World War. These are very, very old buttons that were collected by Józef Broda. And so it really meant a lot to have these clothes and be wearing them. And like I said, every region has different clothing. And so in the high mountains over in Zakopane, they have this type of a jacket. And this, as you can see, is filled with embroidery. Now that holds a key to what we're going to talk about. You can see all the roses and the detail that's in this piece of clothing. And and as I was saying, depending on how much embroidery that you would have, that would tell a little bit about your family. And so the when I went to Nashville, and I went to the Country Music Hall of Fame in the old building, long, long time ago. I was walking around, and I had been in Poland, and I was noticing that a lot of those kinds of designs were in cowboy clothes. And I didn't make the connection at first, but that later I learned that most of the tailors, the cowboy tailors, like Nathan Turk, uh, and of course Nudie, all came from over in Eastern Europe, and they used those kinds of folk designs in the cowboy clothes. And the cowboy clothes originally, a lot of them were made for being in rodeos and stuff. So you had to see somebody from far away. And that's why they got to be kind of flashy. So, this whole idea with the smiley pocket on this jacket here, it's all part of, you can find these things in the old European folk embroidery. Now, so, I went there, and it reminded me about, my fascination when I was younger about wearing these clothes. And I thought, well, maybe it's time to wear them again. And I had heard about this guy named Manuel. Manuel, and Manuel is like this really kind of mythical figure in Nashville who made all of these, kind of clothes. He worked with Nudie of Hollywood, and and then he kind of took over a lot of his work later on and made outfits for, oh gosh, Elvis Presley's that golden lame thing, and Graham Parsons, and all these kinds of people. And so you can imagine, when I first found out about him, I went over into his shop, and I was there with a friend of mine who, she was a songwriter, and just out of whim, she said, let's go over to Manuel's shop. Now, I didn't know that you needed to have an invitation to come to the shop. And so we're walking around, and we're looking at all these different things. And so the woman behind the cash register, she said, well, who are you? What are you doing here? And I said, well, I'm Rik Palieri. I'm a singer, and, I have a little TV show. And she said, oh, you're probably here to interview my father. And of course, being the kind of TV producer that I am, I said, of course. Well, I had cameras in the car. I always carried around cameras. So she said, well, when do you want to do it? I said, well, let's do it tomorrow. So she set up the interview, and the next day I was sitting there with Manuel in his shop in Nashville, and he talked all about the old clothes that the entertainers wore. Now, the thing that's important to understand, I mean, Manuel would say like this, that you tell the clown by the nose. He said, it depends on what kind of an idea you want to give people of what they will remember. And he was saying that, that there might be, a woman sitting on a bus, and she's looks like a nun. And so everybody moves out of the way and has her sit down, of course, being gentlemen. And then later on, they found out that she was a pickpocket. So, but they thought she was a nun. And so she treated her that way. And the same kind of thing is when you go up on stage. And that's what Manuel was saying. He was saying, it depends on how you want people to remember you. Now, I was thinking about that. And I said, well, what do you think about me? And he said, well, he goes, I think one thing you got to do, Rik, is that you have to think about, what do you want people to remember? I'm not going to tell you what to wear. He said, you have to figure that out, And so after the TV show, I started thinking about it. And on that same trip, I had done the interview, and I was down in Arizona at the Festival of the West, and they had a booth, the Manuel booth, with all of these clothes in it, and they were kind of expensive. And I put on a jacket, and it looked kind of good. And I looked at the price tag, and the price tag looked kind of expensive. And so I said, well, boy, it's a nice jacket, but I don't have that kind of money. And she said, well, it really looks good on you. You should really think about it. And I said, well, I don't know. I said, I was just over at Manuel's shop over in Nashville and doing an interview with him. And she stopped me and she said, wait a minute. She said, I've been working for this company for years and I never met Manuel. You were really with, I don't believe you were with Manuel. I said, yeah, with, a little TV show and we did this. She said, I'll tell you what, if you can prove to me that you were just with Manuel, like you said, I'll let you have this jacket for less than half the price, less than wholesale. I said, So I got home from that trip and I sent her a copy of the show. And a few days later, she sent me back the exact jacket. So the first piece of clothing that I got from Manuel, I got from this crazy kind of deal. And so I started thinking about it. And I put it on. And, the first thing that happened is I noticed that when maybe the month before, I'd be up on stage and I'd be playing wearing my festival t-shirt like we always do. And then I had on this jacket that people looked a little bit different. And they kind of were more interested and they listened a little bit more. And I said, well, that's kind of interesting. And so that began this kind of fascination with the kind of clothes. And I brought some stuff to show you. Now we had talked about this idea of my great-grandfather's rose. So I had seen this rose ever since I was a little boy looking at this book. And so I said to Manuel, Manuel, I've seen this design all my life, but I've never seen what it really looked like. So I sent it to him. And there, on the back of my vest, if you've ever seen me out on stage wearing this vest, this is my great-grandfather's design. It's a little bit different. I mean, artists have artist interpretation, but this is the rose. If you look closely at it, you can see it's the same rose. That's right. And then, because when I was in the rose tattoo, they gave me the name of totem pole. That's a whole nother story. Manuel created this kind of crazy idea. So that was the first thing that I did. Then I had helped Manuel he was working on these 50 jackets from all the different states of the United States to say thank you. He was originally from Mexico. He wanted to thank America for his life. And he had jackets from every state with all kinds of different things on it. And I said, well, what are you doing for the Vermont jacket? Well, they had a lot of generic things. I said, well, did you ever hear about the catamount? And I sang the song to his daughter, to Morelia, about the catamount that I usually open up the show with here about the hills of old Vermont. And I told him about how the catamount was, they say the last one was killed back in 1900, but the hunters still believe that the catamounts are still out there. And they believe they see footprints in the snow. So you could see, here's the footprints in the snow. And our state insect is a honeybee. And of course, Mariana is a beekeeper. So we'll put that on there. And the only thing I didn't understand why he put oak instead of maple, but maybe he had maple on a different shirt. So we kind of designed that shirt like that. And then what happened was I thought that, well, that was kind of interesting. So let's see if we can design something really different. So I had this idea about this kind of shirt that had hobo signs on it. And you can see that there's a hobo nickel over here. That's the nickels that they used to carve and trade. And there's some of the old hobo signs. Here's a man with a gun lives here. And here is the sign for work. And let's see. And here is, if you go into the church, they might feed you. And here, you could sit at the table. And then he put on this wild, railroad car over here. And he thought that it would be really kind of cool. He's got a hobo knife over here to use this kind of bib thing that like kind of Roy Rogers and stuff would wear. So he did that. And So then these are some of the old style kind of shirts that I picked up along the way. This one here is from the ranch wear of California. Now I had a shirt, this is a shirt like the shirt I lost when I was young, that I had and I used to perform with. Even when I used to sing with the Sloop Singers, sometimes I wore these shirts. I don't know how that flew. But anyway, and then, you know, this is another one of those kind of shirts, and this one is from Rocky Mount. I'm running out of time. And then right here on Facebook, my good friend Rob McNorland. Rob McNorland had a wonderful friend, you know, and you know, and was an embroidery designer over in Austria, and she made this as a gift to me for Christmas, as you can see, and she has the totem pole here and the banjos over here, and there's those red roses like we had before. So then, when I started doing the barn dance show, she made me this kind of thing. And this is probably the wildest thing. This is the mentor's coat. This is a really wild thing. There's Jimmy Driftwood's guitar over here. And here's Leadbelly Stella. Oh, let's see if you can see it. Yeah. Well, you can't see it there. Well, you can see it on the back. There's Leadbelly Stella. And there's a Utah's Guild there, and there's Pete Seeger's 12-string. So that's it, folks. I tried to squeeze a lot into this to tell you a little bit about, you know, when you think about, you know, these clothes and why people wear them, and for different reasons, you know. And for me, it's sort of like wearing art, you know, especially these kinds of things that were all handmade. And a lot of them gifts, you know, well, I just wanted to share that with you. I'm going to go out because we're running out of time. Can we do that? What do you think there? We'll be back next week, won't we? Oh, so goodbye from everybody here over at Coze's Run, and see you next week. I've been happy all my life, all I had is a Barlow knife. I've been happy all my life, all I had is a Barlow knife. Barlow handling a Barlow blade, best old knife ever was made. Barlow handling a Barlow blade, best old knife ever was made. Yeah. See you next week, right here on Songs and Stories for Hard-Hitting Times with Rik Palieri. Have a great week. I've been happy all my life. All I had is a Barlow knife. I've been happy all my life. All I had is a Barlow knife. Barlow handling a Barlow blade. Best old knife that ever was made. Barlow handling a Barlow blade. Best old knife ever was made. All right. Have a good week now. Bye.